I'm gonna go over my crane, I guess. It is pretty friggin' sweet, not gonna lie. So, what we got is it's an 11'6", 8" by 10 per foot beam. It's built on a rotating centerpiece. This is all 4x4 3/16 square tube. I made it like this so that I could build the column to full height and then make a rotating assembly, and then obviously bring the beam up so it was as close as I could get. It just barely clears my lights. In the springtime, when I go back to using this door, I'll be putting my opener back in. I might opt for a wall style opener, because when that opener is installed, I only get from my workbench out to, until it bumps the opener. I actually welded a nut I've since removed that kept the jib from actually hitting the opener. It would stop just short of it. But now that I removed that and cut that stopper off, the crane actually goes all the way. I mean, it goes all the way back to the wall if I wanted to. So probably the most difficult part of this was getting a footing, basically a base plate that would work with my floor. So my garage is a 4" pour, probably no rebar in it. I was working with an engineer buddy of mine that I met at work and came up with an idea. So even though the 4" slab doesn't provide much pull-out force, I was able to take what this is actually a 1" thick plate of steel. These are 1" anchors, and they're embedded literally only 3 inches, and it's basically only for twisting force from this part. But over here I drilled down 15 inches. There are 4 bolts, I think it's 3 bolts, 3 of these 1" bolts that are 15 inches deep that run straight vertically into the footing of the garage itself. So the outside footing that spans the perimeter of the garage, I ran bolts in that direction. And then I also welded another 1" plate, full pen welded it, so it's actually slapped up tight to the footing on the outside of the house. And it has bolts, 5 bolts that run horizontally in, so it would have to literally pull the entire footing of the garage up to rip that out. And once I proposed that idea to him, he was okay signing off, saying that I could easily pick 2,000 pounds at least out at the tip of this thing, 11 feet out. And if you actually go to look into building a jib crane like this, a freestanding one with no top support, you'll find that the moment force that it generates on the column itself is actually extreme. I mean, 2,000 pounds out here, say we're at 10 feet even, because the trolley, the beam's 11 feet, 11'6" or something like that. The trolley only really runs out where the cable pulls to it's probably realistically 10'6", but we'll say 10 feet. But think of it like a breaker bar out 10 feet, 2,000 pounds is 20,000 pounds of force out here at the top of the column. And that, when you're trying to pull the top of the column this direction, it's doing a lot. It's pulling a lot on the ground. It's relying heavily on your footing. So having a large base plate offsets that quite a bit, and then having a lot of bolts and shear definitely helps. The thing works great. What I have here for the rotating assembly is they're actually late 80s Chevy van front encapsulated wheel hub, like bearings. I found one my dad gave me that they actually use on like car washes. It's the part that the car wash assembly like rolls back and forth on. So I knew it was heavy duty enough, because that's a big rotating thing, and it would only use one. You know, it didn't have one top and bottom, just had one in the bottom, and it would roll back and forth and spin for years. And I ended up buying another one after I referenced the part number and realized that it was actually just a wheel bearing, like a hub assembly. So I got two, and that's what kind of encapsulates that pivoting portion. I made that good and tall because I figure, you know, the farther spaced out your bearing surfaces are, probably the, you know, the less force you'll have. As if, you know, if those things were only a few inches apart, you'd have an immense amount of force trying to basically rip the bearings apart. But here it seems to work really nice. Like I said, I got that beam up as far as I could. I did, when I first set this thing, I pitched the beam up at a couple degrees because I knew that there was going to be some beam deflection when you lifted loads up here. So I pitched the whole beam up, I think it was like 2 or 3 degrees, and the weight of the beam itself, plus just a basic like 500-pound load, makes it about level. Plumbing the column is pretty critical so that this beam doesn't, you know, get crazy and swing away. There's literally no resistance on those bearings though, so even when I turn my shop fan on, the air that it pulls will pull the beam to the fan and whatever. I got this electric hoist, basically an inverted winch, from Amazon. I think it was 130 bucks. All the iron, I got stuff that, you know, extra steel from work. I got a beam trolley, and to get as much headroom as I could, I welded the trolley straight to the backing plate, and I added a couple wheels to the winch. You can see right there, and one on this side, so that when you yank down on the cable, it was kind of trying to tip it one way or the other, rocking on the beam trolley. It doesn't do that anymore. You can run all the way out to the end and all the way back, and then it's got its own full-time power. I've picked more weight than my Kubota can handle with virtually zero effort, including the entire cab, cage, and everything. Picked it right off the frame, swung it over, set it on the ground. It picks axles, drivetrain parts, no problem. I'm actually gonna try it out today now that all this is put together, see if I can pick from the front of the frame here and actually pick the whole works up to get this thing to full droop. And I don't think it's going to have an issue doing it. Halfway across the beam, you got to figure, if I'm good for 2,000 pounds out here, should be good for 4,000 here, and, you know, double that here. In theory, should be able to pick, you know, 8,000 pounds way up close to the column or more. The moment, the bending deflection does increase the moment force a little bit, but this beam really doesn't bend that much. It's pretty much the perfect size beam for it. You want to make sure you put a beam that's a heavy enough beam that it has a bottom flange that's thick enough so that the wheels on the trolley don't deform and bend when you do pick loads, or you'll get bumps and stuff that you'll have to roll over, and that won't be any fun. I drew this up first. This is the rotating assembly. You can see there's the hubs. I did end up welding the center section to the hubs instead of bolting them like I was gonna do, and then welding the wheel flange right to the haunch. This is the center section. This was my original beam design. I was going to use an actual W flange or H flange column and a footing, Like for this style base plate, you would definitely need like 3 cubic yard, or excuse me, 3 cubic foot footing at least, depending on how much weight you wanted to pick. When you can buy these jib cranes, and they all recommend a pretty massive footing. I didn't want to do all that, so I did find a good way around it. If you were going to put this type of thing out in the middle of your garage or somewhere where you couldn't lock in to the existing exterior footing, you would definitely need to cut your floor and install a footing, even a 6-inch pour. Maybe a 6-inch pour with a lot of rebar would be good for some weight, but I still don't think I would necessarily trust standing under it. And especially since once you have it, you say, well, I'm only ever going to pick a ton, you know, in the middle. You'll end up picking, you know, you're going to use it to pick more than what you know it's rated for. So 8-inch beam, this says 6, I used an 8. Most of the rest of the stuff's the same. Beam trolley, this shows a regular pull style chain fall, but I obviously went electric. And this is a better description of the footing, or I guess a better visual of the footing. So there's the base plate that you guys saw. I did not put grout, my floor is flat enough, so I put the plate down, bolted it to the floor, went outside, pretty whiskeyed up one night, sat in a dirt hole in my backyard, and I full pen welded this 24-inch 1-inch plate, which was like 30 passes with 072 232 welding wire. Just sat in the hole and burned a full pen in while drinking one night, and it worked out great. This is kind of what I got. Well, actually, on the outside, I just went with 5 bolts, boom, 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 kind of in a line, about 2 feet down horizontally. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Let's see here, I think that, yeah, I had a different design that I originally came up with, but I didn't end up using. The one I ended up using is far superior anyway. It's in here somewhere. Oh, anyway. Oh, here it is. Wait, yeah, here it is. I was actually, oh no, this is my CJP. Yeah, that's just another drawing of the footing. So anyway, hopefully that can help some of you guys that were interested in take off on your own projects. It's the single greatest thing I ever put in my garage. I set this entire shelving unit with it, and then every single thing I've done with this, from lifting the body on and off to picking up axles, engine, transmission, T-case, even the fenders. I mean, you know how stupid it is trying to hold on to this fender while you're bolting it to the cab, or trying to line it up and with the grill. It's really nice. You just grab a nylon choker and wrap it up, grab it with the crane and hang it on here, and you know, you have an extra set of arms that can lift more than you ever could possibly think of lifting. And this was the thing I used before, which seems like everybody else uses for lifting everything. And yeah, I mean, it's a game changer. And then you can add shit to it, like, you know, stuff to hang your cords, and you can put you can build yourself a haunch and mount your drill press to it. It's Amazon $100 drill press. It works like you would think a $100 drill press would. Yeah, I set my custom homemade bearing press, everything press with that. And I'm sure many more things to come. So that's all I have to say about that. These are awesome too. Kubota tractors for the win.